So today we're going to be checking out the Copper Belle Mine. This is here in the Index Mining District, and one of the older ones in the area. This thing was located in 1897, and mining soon began after that. So pretty early on in the history of Index, and that's not including Galena, which was operated much earlier than that in the 1850s, 1870s. But wasn't a particularly successful mine. This one didn't really see too many productive workings come out of it. A few of them, a couple of the levels produced some ore, but most of the levels, and including the main one where we are now, produced nothing. So this was a tremendous loss for the Copper Belle Mining Company when they continued to put investments into this. But by 1909, they determined that the amount of ore that they had actually gotten out of this thing wasn't viable for continued operations, and so it was mining was ceased for periodic moments. Ownership changed hands a few times, but it never really got up to its pre-1909 production levels after that point. So it's quite old in terms of when all this was worked. More than 100 years ago. In fact, 111 years ago from this year. But here at the portal, we can see that this is, it kind of looks like it's built into a little washout here, which is interesting. Quite a thick dirt layer, but maybe they built it this way because the washout revealed the surrounding or the underlying rock, so they didn't have to worry too much about the entranceway collapsing through unstable timbering networks, some of the likes of which you see in other mines in this area, such as the Cleopatra and the Apex mines. Yeah, they had some pretty sizable pieces of machinery out here by around the 1902 period, and they were really putting a lot of investment into this because they expected it to be big. And we can talk a little bit about why that is once we get in there and we look at the underlying geology of this mine, because it's actually quite interesting. So there are two flooded winzes in this mine that access 3 other levels. We're going to send a GoPro down with the brightest light that we could possibly find, and well, we actually built it ourselves, and it's 8 of those flashlights that we've been using put together into one. 72,000 lumens of power, and we're gonna shine that down, give the GoPro a little light to see what's down those winzes.
That is fucking cold.
Pretty cold. Yeah, so this entranceway is some deep water. I remember being in here before and the water got up to almost chest level. We took a measurement of the temperature, and it was about 49 degrees. It's about 90 outside. A little bit of a heat wave in Seattle right now, so it's a little refreshing actually. So you can obviously tell by the state of this mine that we're in, they needed to have a pretty solid water pump system to get all this water out. They built it, it almost looks like they built it in a slightly downward angle at the start here, which is unusual. The standard is to build it more at an upward angle so the water drains out naturally. We've actually, well, I've been to this mine several times before today, and each time, for whatever reason, I lose the SD card with the footage. I swear it's like I'm cursed with this particular mine. So we're not going to do that today, but it's definitely quite familiar. Yeah, I think we're through the deepest part. The first time we came through here, it was me and Colin, and he had leg waders, which were not sufficient, so he took a little bit of a swim. Is it? Oh, there's definitely some serious iron. Let's have a look.
I can't quite tell if that's
So the only reason we're being so confident in this mine is because we've explored this before, and so we're familiar with where the winzes are, where the shafts are. But with a flooded mine like this, you do have to be careful because the the water can hide some very dangerous features, and we'll see that later in the mine. Look at this. You can see there's some sulfur content to this rock. Look at that. See that yellow?
Yeah, you can smell it too.
You can smell it too, and this is where one of the indications we can see of the igneous intrusion that we're going to be looking at when we get closer in there, the geology of what formed this. The ores of copper they found in this mine were associated with sulfides, and that was Chalcopyrite is going to be our main copper ore, a little bit of bornite as well, which is also complex with sulfur, and those have the appearance of fool's gold. Iron sulfides, they have that appearance. So we'll hopefully see some of that. Looks like little salt deposits too. That's kind of cool. It is getting a lot more shallow, which is nice. Water is just crystal clear. So as we're entering this thing, you can probably tell why they were getting so excited building this thing in here. There was a lot of momentum going into the production of this mine because it's at this interesting geologic zone and index, and there's all this mineral content. It's everywhere here. So they were probably going into this thing thinking that there was going to be a very large vein of minerals, specifically copper. There was a little bit of a vein, as we'll see, but nothing quite what they had hoped for. But such is the story of many of these mines, particularly in Washington, as prospecting in those days was a venture in trial and error. Error was quite common. Success was very rare, but very lucrative. And so it always drove these kinds of productions forward with the hope that they might one day hit the jackpot. One of the ways you can tell that this was a heavily invested mine is by the quality of the rails here. You'll notice some of our earlier videos of a lot of the prospects in this area, Miller River and Money Creek. The rails are quite small, little cheap little things. These are not. These are quite hefty, larger rails. The tracks are built stronger, built better, more expensive. But that's what you do when you expect a mine to be making a profit. So by this point, it looks like they're finally starting to drift upward at an upward angle, which is why you can see that the water is flowing down. This is what a typical mine will do to prevent that flooding from happening. I don't know why exactly they didn't do that at the start. Oh, you're right. Yeah, it's a little, okay, let's set that there. That'll be a good spot. Yeah, a little copper there. Yeah, sure enough. These mines have been explored ever since they were abandoned, and so a lot of times you'll find artifacts from all over the years. We found beer cans from the 1950s, 70s, and of course modern beer cans. People are still exploring these mines. But, it's kind of interesting how that works. They're almost like time capsules in a sense. they were stoping this out as a storage room for the timbering that they put into place here. Then behind this little buildup of collapsed rock has created a pool of water, so we're going to be wading a little bit more further on. So we not bump our heads here. There's a lot of weight on that thing. So this must actually access the upper levels to the mine. And looks like they had a little collapsing issues as well, but this was definitely an intentional raise that they built here. That's pretty cool. Oh yeah.
Looks like an old style.
That's an old one, yeah, that's for sure. No label on it. It's eroded away through the ages.
That's actually really fucking cool.
Yeah, I wonder what age that's from. Does get a little deep here, so watch your step.
Is that the raise in the upper levels?
Oh no. I mean, it is probably a raise to the upper levels, but it's not like the main one. We'll be approaching that.
Oh, it's like 30 feet up.
Yeah, we'll be approaching that soon. The site where they put in the winze that accesses the lower and the upper levels, and they hauled out a lot of the ore from that area because it's the main part of the Belle vein, which is what they were working here. It'll be an interesting area to look at the rocks and examine the features before we take a look at what's in that winze. I think we might be approaching. Yes, this is it. So this is the heart of the Belle vein. Now, the Belle vein is an interesting geologic structure because it's formed at the contact point between an igneous intrusion of granodiorite and the already existing late Cretaceous period metamorphic rock that existed on the surface. And that intrusion happens when the magma moves upward through the rock. The granodiorite is a little bit less dense than the metamorphic rock. We'll be looking for that, but the granodiorite is, I think this is actually the granodiorite rock right here. You can see it there. It's a less dense rock than the metamorphic, which takes the form of quartzite in this case. And so as a less dense rock and being molten, it will actually protrude through that layer and cause subsidence on the surface. And because it stays underground, it cools very slowly, and that gives a lot of time for the mineral content within that intrusive layer to precipitate out into minerals and into veins, as you can see on the wall in front of me. And the index intrusion, which caused this, the whole copper belt in Index, including the Sunset Mine and the Lake Serene Mine and the mine we're standing in now, it was an intrusion rich in copper. And so the copper precipitated outward. And in this case, it was at the contact point between that boundary. And, but there was also fissures created within the intrusive layer itself, where the precipitate actually just remained within that layer, but in a nucleated state. And that would be the vein that they mined at the Sunset Mine, which was actually very profitable. That was kind of the model for the Index area of what a mine should be, what you want it to be, and how much you could realistically expect to hope from mining this copper belt. So what we're looking for here is both the granodiorite rock, which we've pointed out already. We're also looking for the metamorphic rock, and that's quartzite. So we're looking for quartzite, and we're also looking for some of those minerals that came with it. You'll notice that back in the main room there are a lot of drifts and crosscuts that come off of this main area, and that's because this was the real site that they were interested in. And they were looking for any expansion of that vein that they could mine into. So they were looking for anywhere that vein might go and become rich. There's a bottle, the old bottle, a lot of old pipes and tubing and all that. The ore that they were interested in here was, as we were saying, chalcopyrite. So we're kind of looking for that gold tint on the walls, and the iron sulfides as well. Those come along with the chalcopyrite. And bornite, which is, it takes more of a purplish gleaming appearance, also called peacock ore. But that it was in lesser of a quantity here than at a location like the Lake Serene mine, which we actually got some really good samples. You should check that out if you're interested in this kind of thing. And this is what we really came here for. This is the winze, the first one. This accesses the lower level. So there are 6 different levels actually to this mine. We're on the main one, but there are 3 below us. So the levels go D, H, K, L, M, and N. We're on level K. D and H are actually up there. They're a couple hundred feet up there, and we're not trusting that rope at all. And the portal to level H is caved, but the portal to level K, or level D, is supposedly open, but we haven't actually seen any documentation on it. So we're gonna go look for it later, because that was the level D, where they got most of the ore out of the mine. The vein actually was a little stronger up there than was here, and the ore was of better quality. But you can certainly tell already from the walls of this that they were in fact chasing this vein, and this was where they localized it to. And the levels below us are the L, M, and N layers. Each of those is a couple hundred feet long, and they're completely flooded at this point. So we don't really know what the heck is down there. All we know is that they didn't find what they were looking for, but we're gonna try to send a camera as far as we can. This one's gonna be a little harder because it's at an incline. There's another one that's straight down that we're really excited to see what we can find. So today we're using this guy. This is 8 of those LEDs that we've been using for most of our mine explorations put together into one. It's a 800 watt LED flashlight. Unfortunately, it took a little damage when we were getting to this mine in the backpack, and it's dislodged a little bit from its housing, but it still works and we'll still use it. 72,000 lumens. We're just trying to give the GoPro as much light as we can possibly give it so that it can see what the heck is down there. All right, show us what we got, Gil. Nice. Just a little bit, getting the right orientation. you can tell that the mineral content in the rock is getting weaker as we progress farther and farther away from that main stoped area. A little bit of something there. See that red? What is that?
Right. Oh.
See the red in the rock there?
Yeah. That's a good.
What the heck is that?
Huh. Almost looks like maybe iron. Right?
But-
Like rust or something.
It looks a little too dark for iron, right? Like it's almost pink.
Huh.
Interesting. I've seen minerals like that before, but I can't remember their names.
Yeah. No things really come to mind for it.
This kind of looks like quartzite. It's just covered in dirt. Have you seen that white back layer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does kind of look like quartzite mixed with diorite.
There's your granodiorite right there. Go for it, man. A little iron on the walls. I really do like this cool white better. You can see in the camera some of those mineral colors. Oh, you can keep using yours, but yeah, it's nice. I wish we had done this sooner. Wasn't that hard to build.
Actually, that's some decent thing.
Oh yeah, look at that. A little something there. That is malachite intermixed with a little bit of sulfur. So this is the kind of thing you'd look at and expect to see chalcopyrite, because you've got sulfur and copper clearly visible in the same location. And it's likely that there is some that we just can't see. As you can probably tell by now, this is a pretty deep mine. It's like 2,700 feet of workings or something like that. Most of them are here on this level, the K level. We're probably 1,500 feet into the mountain right now. Maybe a little bit more.
Oh, it was here recently.
Yeah, 2019. I think the first time we explored this mine was in 2019. In like March. So it's been a while.
1974.
Oh, that's cool. I always like seeing those kind of things in these mines. It's like old writing from like the 60s and 70s. There's a peace sign, 1970. That's cool. I wonder what our thing would be like. What would be our symbol for 2021?
Ooh. I feel like a biohazard sign.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. We're going to come across another flooded winze here. Some of these pipes that you're seeing in front of us They were probably used to pump out the water from that thing. If it's flooded now, it was trying to flood then, and they would have had to actively keep it from flooding. A lot of writing here, wow. Yeah. These really are little time capsules. That's one of the cool things about exploring mines is you just get to see all this cool stuff from over the ages. Now this is kind of interesting. There's that iron content in the rock. I can still see the vein. It's getting weaker though, and I'm not seeing as much copper as I was back there. Oh yeah, we're coming right up to the winze. It's right up there ahead of Gil. So this is it. And now I don't actually know where this thing goes. I don't know if anybody does. But, whoa, it looks different than before. You see down there, there's that layer. It's easier to see in the camera actually than it is in person, but there's that dark layer. I think that is where the copper has settled to, so it's just lower than it was last time. But it's still there. It was probably like 5 feet higher than that the last time we were here. You can already tell from where we're standing, this is getting kind of dangerous. Kind of a dangerous section of the mine. If you want to continue, you'd have to cross these timbers here, which are presumably rotting because they've been here for the last 110 years. And then back there, it's important to note the oxygen concentration is quite low. So there's very poor ventilation back there. There's only a few hundred feet of workings. There's no vein, there's no ore samples. We've been back there before, but we're not going to do it this time because we want to preserve the oxygen that's still left in there and stay out of that dangerous section of this mine. But we are going to check this winze out and see what we can find down there. This could be an access point to levels L, M, and N. It could be an attempt at a new level. Well, we sent the camera down a few times, and it looks like one of two things is true. Either this part of the mine was only dug out like a stope. Perhaps this was maybe one of their ways of dealing with the water, and they let it fill up, which could explain why there's this, why it's taken up the entire floor and there's like a bridge forming here. Maybe that was better built out long ago and they just used this as water to deal with the water situation. Or this could have been deeper but is now caved. What we do know is that the bottom of this is just past that blue line of copper from the GoPro footage we took. So it could be that this was a deeper shaft that has just since caved at this particular point and is no longer accessible to the lower workings, which are undoubtedly flooded at this point. So could be either of those, but either way, really cool footage. I haven't done that before, but we're gonna do that in a lot of mines coming up. Any mine that we have a flooded winze like this, we're gonna send a GoPro down and see what we can see, because there are certainly a lot of flooded winzes around the Washington, Western Washington Cascades. But so that's it for what we're going to explore the Copper Belle Mine today, unless we are able to find those other adits. So we're going to go look for that actually. See if we can find that upper adit, see if we can find some ore samples. But if that doesn't happen, then this is it for today. Our next exploration is probably going to be in the Monte Cristo area. We say that a lot, but we're gonna commit to visiting it this summer and actually explore some of those mines up there, which are quite big, quite extensive, and quite interesting. So stay tuned.
We have all these like needle-like structures, kind of this black, shiny crystals that are kind of growing into the rock.
Yeah.
And I believe that those are tourmaline, which is like a crystal that actually you can find in large chunks. It's often made into jewelry.
Oh, cool.
It's not super common in this state, actually.
Why is that?
I don't know why, but I know that like some of the only areas you can find it are up near Leavenworth. I think that's one of the only areas you can find it really in the state.
So how does tourmaline form?
I don't know much about how it forms. I have to brush up on tourmaline, but yeah, it is definitely not very common to find. I think the only other time I've seen it in Washington, it's actually been black or green tourmaline. So this is the first time I'm seeing black in the state, which is kind of cool.
Awesome. Well, this is a fantastic
This
ore
whole
sample.
face here.
Yeah, this is pretty incredible. So this is classic chalcopyrite right there. That's got a good amount of copper in it. You can actually see the crystalline structure taking shape in this sample, which is unusual. Oftentimes in mines like this that are not profitable, you don't find samples this good, but here it is. And also you can see intermixed with the chalcopyrite is a little bornite there. That's peacock ore. That's what we found in the Lake Serene mine in good quality, and we found it here too. That's a pretty cool thing to find. And you can also see there's quite a bit of iron sulfide around there, and the more yellow tinted of those ore samples. And throughout this entire rock, you can actually see a lot of that chalcopyrite, taking a very orange hue there in the rock. The rock itself, you can see that the granodiorite is just kind of scattered. The grain is not consistent. It looks like it's been crushed and then rearranged, which is kind of what you'd expect at a intrusive border here with the metamorphic rock underlayer. So that's a pretty cool ore sample.